Hello, Nebraska, and welcome to this week's edition of The Retirement Compass, the show dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, joined by two financial advisors from Stonebridge Wealth Systems. We have Tim Kulhanek, who is the co-founder, and partner Jeremy Gove. We've got a great show for you today. The title of today's show is Retirement. Your retirement is not about just the next 4 years. What to know and do in the wake of us having a new presidential administration coming up and what that means for you and your financial future. Tim, Jeremy, I'm excited to be back with you in the studio. How are you this week?
We're excited as well to be back. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, and Jeremy, things are going well for you?
Yes, we're excited to be here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I know you've put together a fabulous show, jam-packed of really helpful information. You know, the reality is we did a show earlier this year about investing fear during an election year. And we know that presidential elections in particular can bring up a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear. Well, now that we know the results are in, November 5th happened, and President-elect Donald Trump, we're preparing for that transition from the Biden administration to the Trump administration and beyond. What does that mean for you? What does that mean for your retirement plan? So we're going to get into that today. And I know you've been getting a lot of different questions from folks now that the outcome of the election has happened. So what should viewers be considering and evaluating as this transition occurs?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it is a question I think Jeremy would agree. We're getting it constantly. Is hey, I'm a little bit concerned. There's some uncertainty. Look, every 4 years there's some uncertainty in this country because we're going back to the voting booth really every 2 years. So the reality is you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the thing I want to talk about on the show today isn't necessarily like, well, what stock should I buy? It's not really the purpose of the show. The purpose of the show is to navigate folks to and through retirement, help them get retired, and more importantly, stay retired. So we're really just going to talk about what facts do we know, what's happened so far. So what I want to do is kind of break this down now that the results are in. We know, okay, here's what to maybe expect for the next 4+ years.
Sure, because we can only go with what we know, right?
We can only go with what we know.
Yep.
So let's break it down into 3 different phases. And by the time the show airs, it's going to be a little bit probably behind us, you know? And what I mean by that is this first phase is like from election day probably to inauguration day, where we're starting to learn about, okay, who are the key players that might be involved in this new administration and what school of thought did they come from? What economic or market-based principles might they bring to the table, and how could that then shape this administration and the policies that they start to implement? Phase 2 is going to be inauguration day, probably through the end of May of 2025. And the reason that's such a critical time period is that's usually when we start seeing actual policy proposals and we see what's being prioritized. Is it taxes? Is it the border? Is it something else? And really what we worry about as financial advisors is the financial piece of it. So, you know, the big one is taxes, which we're going to talk about on the show today. What's going to happen with that? We'll probably learn that in the first 5 months. And then the third phase, phase 3, is going to be basically June 1st through the end of December, where we're going to have actual legislative things being voted on. 2025 should be a very busy year as far as the different legislative proposals, the debate that's happening in Washington. We should see a lot of activity, and it's going to give us a pretty good idea of how to position our portfolios for the next 4 to 6 years.
Right. Well, that was an excellent way of setting the stage for us. So thank you for that recap of just, okay, where we are, where we're headed, what we need to be paying attention to. What do you find are the main questions that the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems are being fielded from both your radio listeners and television viewers, specifically when they're going, okay, what do I need to know and what do I need to do now given where we are?
Yeah, so I think you laid it out really well, Tim, but a lot of the questions we're getting are related to taxes. You know, I mean, we've heard, whether you wanted to or not, you were hearing campaign speech after campaign speech after campaign speech about what Donald Trump wants to do, what Kamala Harris wants to do. And so we ended up with a lot of information out there, but you got to sift through all of that to actually figure out, okay, what are we going to actually look at?
And sift through the noise too, right?
Sift through the noise, yeah. And it's still going on, right? And I mean, so one of the things that we talked a lot about is, will the taxes go up? So we've, as Tim mentioned, we've had a time frame of really low taxes, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the show. And will that be extended? Because right now it's set to expire in 2025.
Right, this is the Tax Cuts and Job Act of 2017.
2017, right? Yes, exactly. So will that expire, or is that going to get extended? It's most likely going to get extended, but for how long? And again, it will expire at some point. So there's a time frame here where we might have some opportunities to do some planning. One of the things that was discussed on the campaign trail was we're not going to tax tips.
Right.
You know, we're not going to tax tips. We're not going to tax Social Security.
That was very exciting for a lot of folks to hear.
That was very exciting for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think even more so, the taxes on Social Security.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
You know, when we do a lot of workshops and we ask people, do you think do you think Social Security should be taxed or not? And the answer is resounding no. That is a tax. So why are we taxing the tax? So
yeah, and just to add too, they include how much you're getting from Social Security to determine how much you're going to be taxed on Social Security. I mean, it's such a convoluted thing, right?
Right, exactly. So the answer is a resounding no. And so, I mean, that's a very popular concept of not taxing Social Security.
Yep.
And actually here in Nebraska, that's going to be eliminated at the end of this year. So that's a good thing. So will Social
on the
Security,
state level, you mean?
On the state level, yes, not at the federal level, at the state level.
Right.
And then one of the questions that you know, I think everybody is asking is, what are we going to do about Social Security? I was reading the trust fund is scheduled to be exhausted by 2034 or 2035. So something has to be done to resolve that problem. And so what is that plan going to look like? We've heard about the DOGI, you know, the whole, you know, you got Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy coming in to try to help figure out where can we cut costs at the government level. And so what is that going to have? What impact is that going to have on our budgets and stuff? And we all realize that the government spending is out of control.
Yes.
We're spending more money than we're taking in.
Right.
In fact, the U.S. debt clock shows a deficit of around $2 trillion this year. So that's a gigantic number. And so that's got to be resolved somewhere. So there's just a lot of questions related to all of those things that we're feeling every day in the office.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, for sure. On top of everything else that you all help folks navigate through, right? But I think that's been the common concern is there's always been this threat looming of potentially having rising taxes. I mean, we knew that prior to this election, if Congress did nothing, that the tax rates were going to go back up at the end of 2025. They were set to sunset. That could change. We don't know, right, yet. But we have, knowing that taxes probably, this is the third lowest that they've been in the history of our country. So we know that the threat of rising taxes is always there, plus the threat of government spending and the debt. So, but as we think about this transition and administrations changing, as we wrap up this particular segment, what's one lesson that you want to make sure that our viewers understand about the whole conversation we're having?
Yeah, I think if there's one lesson that I could pass along to our viewers out there, it's the reality that we talk a lot about investing and not letting your emotions impact your investment decisions. And really, it's not letting your political preferences impact your investment decisions. And the main takeaway for me is that the reality is Wall Street cares a lot less about who the president is than all of us. We all have our preferences, but we actually put a graphic we're going to pull up on the screen for our viewers. If you look at this chart, this is just showing the S&P 500 going back to 1926, and it's segmented out by the political party of the president. And whether it's red or it's blue, what do you notice? The main takeaway, market tends to go up, whether it's red or it's blue.
Yep.
And so sometimes we get into this thinking that, oh no, if my person isn't in there, I've got to change things. And that just isn't the case. Now, if we take it one step further, we're going to go to a new chart that shows economic growth and stock market returns going back to 1957 by president. And again, you see the same thing. On the y-axis or the up or down, the vertical axis, that's market returns. They're all about at the same height, which means that each one of those presidencies, the market averaged about the same darn thing. So what's the moral of the story? Again, don't let your emotions or your political persuasions influence your investment decision-making. It typically only leads to poor outcomes. So I think if you think about it this way, one of the main duties of a financial advisor is to make sure that they develop a plan that their clients are willing to stick to long term. And really, we've got a team of experienced advisors who collectively we've been through countless different administrative changes as far as who's in control, whether it's in the House, the Senate, the White House. We've been through bear markets, bull markets. We've landed the plane before. We've helped hundreds of families within our community navigate to and through a successful retirement. And we'd really love an opportunity to do the same thing for all of you. If you call the number below at your screen or click that QR code, we'll look forward to seeing our office real soon.
Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. It's valuable information. I'm excited to continue the conversation with you. You know, I'm reminded of what one of my mentors always said to me is that money is neither red nor blue, it's green. So it's so important to stay the course. Make sure that you have a solid plan in place for your retirement, regardless of what's happening in Washington. So if you would like help and you want to have this complimentary written financial plan built for you by the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems, we invite you to pick up the phone and call that number on the bottom of your screen, 866-256-7778. Or if you'd rather connect online, if you simply pull out your smartphone, you can open up that camera app, just point, click, and scan that QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Stonebridge Wealth Systems will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary meeting that way as well. We have a lot more to talk about. Stay with us. We'll be back with more right after this.
Our team is very unique, so we all have different gifts. You know, when you put it all together, it fits well.
Jeremy is definitely our most seasoned and fastest growing advisor we have. He's discerning, so he understands the way we want to do things at Stonebridge, to focus on the client and solving their problems, and that's really what he's passionate about.
I know Tim spends a lot of time making sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed for his clients. And he's not just satisfied knowing the 30,000-foot view, he wants to get down in the weeds and know exactly how it works.
The things that you buy, the stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds, that really isn't that important to the client. What's important to the client is, what does this mean for me? And at the end of the day, what it means is they can sit back and listen to the music. You know that you've got a team, not just one person, but an entire team behind you that's taking care of those things, so you can focus on what's important.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Tim and Jeremy from Stonebridge Wealth Systems, financial advisors, and we are talking today about how retirement really is not just about the next 4 years. What to know and what to do in light of the fact that we are encountering a presidential administration change. And I know we covered a lot of ground about kind of what we can expect, right? We can only go with what we know, and that's what legislative risk is all about. We don't know, the laws could change, right? But we have to plan with what we know. We were talking earlier about some of the questions that you're getting from both your radio listeners and also TV show viewers. Tell us more about this whole potential extension of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, because I know that a lot of people were thinking, okay, taxes are probably going to go up at the end of 2025, and we knew that if Congress did nothing, that's what was supposed to happen. Now there's talk of that being extended. So what do folks need to understand about that?
Yep. Well, so yeah, you're right, Kristen. So we do expect this to be a very busy legislative session on Capitol Hill. When you think about the tax cuts that you mentioned, those were set to expire, or those are set to expire in 2025. They are expected to be extended, and it's likely that that will happen. Can we say that for sure? No, but it's likely that that would happen. So if I'm a retiree sitting at home in the audience or thinking about retirement, and I have an opportunity to take advantage of Roth conversions, I have roughly another 4 to 6 years most likely to do that. So I want to take advantage of that. But the key to understanding this whole process is it will also expire at some point. And one of the things that we always talk about is, do we think taxes are going to be higher or lower? I mean, when we ask that from most of our audiences, they'll say they're going to be higher at some point in the future. They'll have to be. And so what we talk about a lot right now is, don't let your emotions control you. Let's use our head and let's think about what is going to be the best strategy going forward. Obviously, if I can convert money to a Roth IRA, where it will grow tax-free and I'll take that out tax-free at some point in the future, that's going to benefit my family, not only myself, but also my extended family as well.
Right. Well, and there's so much to navigate. I know you do Roth conversions for folks day in and day out, but we have all at this desk seen horror stories when folks have tried to execute these on their own and maybe inadvertently did too much in any given year, unnecessarily bumped themselves up into a higher tax bracket. So why is it so important for someone to consult with financial advisors such as yourselves about these Roth conversions?
Yeah, because I mean, if you do it wrong, there's a lot of different things that can go wrong. So you could accidentally go over, the big one I see is people kind of shoot from the hip. They don't have a tax planning software they're using. They're like, I think I'll give it the eyeball test. And as my dad used to say, good enough for government work when he was measuring things, kind of. And so the angles at our house were usually not exactly 90 degrees, but if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So, but the reality is, if you go over certain income thresholds with what's called your MAGI or modified adjusted gross income, you could potentially pay more for things like Medicare. I've seen people cash out 401ks because they want to, I'm going to pay off my house, or I'm going to convert the entire thing all at once. And that's not necessarily always a great strategy. What we do at our firm is we make sure we go through a methodical process of testing. Do I convert over 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, or somewhere in between? What's that magical number that's going to give the best outcome ultimately for both me and my beneficiaries? But if we just want to talk for a second about what a Roth conversion is, because some people are watching, they're probably like, well, hey, what are you talking about? You're not speaking my language, Tim. So let's do that for a moment. Let's make this so it makes sense for everyone. A Roth conversion is just when you take money that's currently in your tax deferred bucket, and we've talked about this on the show. There's 3 different tax buckets: taxable, tax deferred, tax free. The best type of money is tax free. It means that it can grow and you'll never pay tax on that money again, no matter how much it grows to, right? You don't want unbridled growth in the tax deferred bucket because it's essentially kicking the can down the road. Like a pre-tax IRA is essentially an IOU to the IRS. So a Roth conversion is when you take money out of that tax deferred account and you move it to tax free. A common misconception is, oh, well, Tim, I make too much money, I don't qualify for a Roth.
Right.
That does not apply to a Roth conversion. That's for a contribution. Okay. Right. So like in 2024, I think it was like 240,000. Once you're over that, you can't put money into a Roth IRA if you're married filing jointly. That doesn't apply to a Roth conversion. Income limits haven't applied since 2010. That's another legislative risk that we've talked about. President Biden's 2025 budget proposal actually included caps on Roth conversions and eliminated the backdoor Roth, which we've talked about on other shows. But here's why this is so critical. Number one, you said it, Kristen, tax rates are historically low. If we could pull that chart up on the screen, you'll see right here, this is going to be the history of the U.S. tax rates. Let's just look at the top income tax bracket, which right now sits at 37%. Look how high it's been, and look how long, from 1944 roughly to the 1990s, it sat well above like that 60%, almost to 1990. And the highest it's ever been was 94% in 1944 and 1945, just after World War II. We're running, as far as the debt to GDP ratio, it's very similar to what we saw back around the World War II time period. So it's not out of this world crazy to think that we could see a return to much higher tax rates. Why? Number two, we are drastically underpaying for the government that we currently have. I looked this up. CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, they project that over the next decade, the annual budget deficit, it's going to, sit down, folks, it's going to range from $1.7 trillion to $2.9 trillion. Insane. There's, I sometimes ask people, so if you take 1 trillion seconds, how many years would that be? Oh, a lot. 20, 30 years. Right. It's like 32 or 33,000 years in 1 trillion seconds. And so to put that in perspective, even the Penn-Wharton budget model says, look, this isn't going to be fixed by some superficial cut. It's going to take more drastic action. Number three, there's a precedent for limiting strategies like this. I talked about the backdoor Roth potentially being phased out. The other thing is, back in 2010, there was an income limit of $100,000. If your modified adjusted gross income was above that, you couldn't do a Roth conversion. Right. So moral of the story is, we have a window of opportunity, but it could be like the windows in the house I grew up in on Fifth Avenue there in Kearney. I don't use that as like a security question, so I think I'm good saying that. Where you had to prop them up with like a little stick, almost like a paint stick or something. But when those things slam shut, they're shut and they might not open back up. That's the reality of what we're living with right now with this gift we've been given, potentially from the extension of these tax cuts.
Some pretty compelling reasons that you're stating about why now is the time to really look into this. Like you said, we have this window of time, and it's potentially being extended for a little bit longer than people thought. So what would you say to someone who's watching, either going, you know what, I hadn't considered this, or maybe you're already working with another financial advisor and they're not having these kinds of conversations with you? What would you say to someone who's maybe going, I never thought about it this way, but maybe I need to start considering a Roth conversion for myself?
I mean, the reality is most people who come in to visit with us, a lot of them are coming from the TV show that have seen this, and they're like, Tim, these are concepts that haven't been discussed with me. There's a very large, well-known registered investment advisory firm that a lot of people would recognize the name. I won't get into that. One of the biggest in the country. And they come out with like their top 99 tips for a successful retirement. And a Roth conversion falls at like number 92. Now, why on earth, if we're in one of the lowest tax regimes we've been in history in this country, why on earth is it not in the top 5, 10, at least 20? I have an idea why. I have an idea why too,
and
right?
Why is that?
Well, the reality is the way that we get paid, including Jeremy and I and our team of experienced advisors at Stonebridge, is we get paid based off of the value of the account, because the better you do as a client, the better we do. So if you make money, we make more money. It's a win-win, right? Well, if you do a Roth conversion, that's not avoiding completely paying the tax bill. It's basically buying the government out at a rate that we know and we like versus postponing to some point in the future where rates could be stratospherically higher.
Right.
Well, you still have to pay the bill. So if I'm managing that money and they convert $200,000 and 20% or $40,000 has to go to pay the tax bill, it's $40,000 I no longer get to charge a fee on. And so you have to kind of wonder, what's the incentive? At the end of the day, Jeremy and I, our team of elite advisors, we are fiduciaries to our client. We have a moral, legal, and ethical obligation to put your interests ahead of our own. I think that's really what the offer is here today. You can't get a second opinion from the person that's giving you the first opinion. So if these are some concepts that you haven't heard about or you haven't thought about, that'd be a reason you'd want to get a complimentary written financial plan. What it is, it's just a complimentary outline of your entire financial picture. We'll look at your income, but we'll also get into investment, tax, healthcare, and legacy. What it does is analyzes each of those different potential income streams and kind of stress tests them. What would happen if tax rates went up? What if inflation's higher than I thought it would be? What if something happens to Social Security? But here's what it means, and this is the important part. I really want you to listen close on this one. What that means is you can stop wondering, when can I retire? Will my money last as long as I need it to? Will my family be okay if something were to happen to me? We're going to answer those questions when you give us a call.
Wonderful. Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. That number to call is there on the bottom of your screen, 866-256-7778, to claim your complimentary written financial plan from the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems. Or again, you're also welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more on today's episode right after this.
You know, if you think about the average American consumer, we don't talk about financial topics very often. And so we spend a lot of time at Stonebridge doing educational seminars and different things that are free of charge. If you're not educated in a topic, how do you make educated decisions? When you're working with a client, you're sitting down with them, they're a little stressed out, but after you go through the process and you really take time to educate them on not only what we're doing for them, but why we're doing it, that really gives them peace of mind, and you can see the weight just kind of drops. And when they leave, I hear all the time,
I really should have done this years ago. But sometimes there's a fear that somebody might try to sell us something. If the things that I can provide, if you don't want, don't need, or can't use those, I've got some good news for you. We're not going to sell them to you. We are fulfilling our fiduciary duty of putting their interests ahead of our own.
Have you ever considered refinancing your retirement? When interest rates are low, you might be able to refinance your home, your car loan, or even credit card rates, because it would help you keep more of your own money each month. Yet when interest rates go up, it may make sense to refinance your retirement. Higher interest rates could provide income opportunities that you may not be aware of. What works for your portfolio during low interest rates may not work for you when interest rates are high. Find out if a retirement refi could work better for you. Give us a call today and schedule a complimentary Refi Your Retirement review.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass, where today we've been discussing how important it is to not let your emotions, and maybe even more relevant right now, your political inclinations, mess up your financial future. We've talked about the importance of staying the course, and really what we're doing is helping folks understand, now that we know that the administration is going to be changing, what's on the table. We know policies might be changing, but you have to plan with what you know. And this is what you do for folks, is be able to build solid financial plans so that no matter what's happening in Washington, you can be confident that you are not going to outlive your money. At the end of the day, that's really what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the three questions we get: when can I retire? Will my money last as long as I need it to? There was a study from Allianz that recently that found that 2/3 of Americans are more concerned of running out of money than they are of dying. Wow. It's a bigger fear.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. And then again, will my family be okay if something were to happen to me? We can answer all those questions, but I'm reminded we do a semi-annual breakfast meeting at our Lincoln office, and basically at Wilderness Ridge we have All of our clients come out, they can bring friends if they want to, and it's basically a state of the market, if you will. And so the state of the union is state of the market. What's going on in the market? How's my portfolio performing? And what are the things I need to be aware of? And at the last two we've done, so last 12-month period, question after question I was fielding was about, well, what if this happens regarding the election? What if it changes or it stays the same? Doesn't really matter. And so I'm going to pull up a chart that I pulled up at that breakfast, and I think it's going to help hopefully calm some fears.
Okay.
So this is just going to show the last 10 years, if you invested $100,000 starting in 2013 through the end of 2023. If you only invested, if you said, now I'm only going to invest if it's a Republican in office, your $100,000, congratulations, it grew to $181,000.
That's that red line right
That's
there.
the red line. Thank you, Kristen. Yep. Now, the white line, a little hard to see, that's if you only invested during Democrat-led administrations, that $100,000 grows to $172,000. So really
so that white line below the red line.
Correct.
Yes.
So that's the approach of I'm only going to invest if my person or my party is in charge. Now, what if I would have just stayed invested the whole time? Jeremy, you see what that is?
It's a lot of money.
Is that Bill Shakespeare over there, Dad? I can't tell. That's $311,000. Yeah. Okay, so over $100,000, well over $120,000 more, just by staying the course.
Yes.
That's, I think, the message we want to leave for folks.
For sure. We've said this on the show before. It's about time in the market, not trying to time the market, right? It's not timing, it's being invested in staying the course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and Jeremy, I know that, it's eye-opening for folks to see that. Any final thoughts as we close out today's show and discussion on what you want our viewers to be aware of?
I think it's just important to be optimistic because there's going to be a lot of opportunities, and it doesn't matter if taxes are changed or if Roth conversions are changed. There's always going to be opportunities for planning, but you've got to work with a financial planner that actually knows what's going on and actually studies the stuff that's being changed, right? And so I always encourage people, whether you're sitting at home or listening to this, on a podcast or whatever, take the time to pick up the phone, give us a call, and give our team an opportunity to sit down with you and walk through your specific situation so that we can identify the things you're doing right, the things you're doing wrong, things that you can maybe change, and provide that opportunity to make adjustments and have a successful retirement.
Yes. Well, I know that a lot of more folks are going to feel that peace of mind when they come in and meet with you and the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems. And it's your joy to be in folks' corner to help them navigate through all these changes, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, to our viewers at home, that number to call to claim your complimentary written financial plan is there on the bottom of your screen, 866-256-7778, or you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. You don't have to go it alone. The team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems would love to be able to help and serve you. We love you, Nebraska. We look forward to being back with you next time here on the Retirement Compass.